You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Next Door podcast.
Work's been breaking my back, already packing my bags. Punch that time card like a ticket out of here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of Entrepreneurs Next Door podcast. Today's episode was recorded in the friendly confines of In the Kitchen Cooking School, owned by Kathy Gold. And Marcello DeFeo, he's the owner of Valente's Italian Specialties, and had just wrapped up a kid's summer camp, but was gracious enough to sit down with us and truly dive into the legacy of his Nona and his vision for cooking as connection. You're going to love hearing Marcello describe the amount of responsibility he shouldered at as early as 11, manning the kitchen of a small diner down the shore all by himself. It gives you an idea of how early the entrepreneurial bug got to Marcello. His deep love and respect for his Nona really shines through in this podcast, and his vision for his business is encouraging. Please enjoy. All right, this is Barry Hoover. I am here with Marcello DeFeo from Valente's Italian Specialties, and we are having today's podcast at a very special location that we got at the last minute at In the Kitchen here in Haddonfield. And I wanted to lead off first, Marcello, with the inspiration for opening Valente's Italian Specialties here in 2018. What is that inspiration?
So, I would have to say that I just figured, the Philly area, there's no restaurants around in Philly and the surrounding town, so might as well bring a food business into town. Very low risk. Yeah. Very low risk. So, I started working at a very young age, around 11 or 12. I had 2 restaurant jobs at that age. The second job was insane. I worked at this place called the Villanova Diner in Wabancrest, New Jersey. Not the Villanova Diner in Villanova.
Right?
Yeah. And it was me and this guy who was maybe 18 or 19 and the owner. And I worked in the mornings as a busboy at the captain's table, which was this nautical themed restaurant, so I had to wear like these really short shorts and this red and white striped pirate shirt, which was amazing, really is probably the word to. And then I'd go over right after that and I'd go to this little diner, and the owner would leave and it was me and this 18-year-old running a diner, and then he was dating the girl who ran the fruit truck, there was a fruit truck that ran through Wabancrest, and when she would show up, she'd leave with her. So here I am, like, not even a teenager yet, and I was basically running a food business. And, people would come in. It wouldn't get many people, but people come in. It was burgers and hot dogs and stuff like that.
So how long would this fella leave with his girl?
Gone.
Just gone for the night,
yeah.
like, see you in the morning?
Yeah. So he would disappear, and, it was the early 90s. Nobody had like cameras or fancy high-tech systems for clocking in and clocking out, and people come in, they'd order their burgers, I'd go and cook it, and someone would be like, are you the only one here? I'm like, no, they're just in the back, they're busy, they can't come out. So I'm crazy. I loved it. I loved doing that, and a year or so later, I got a job in a high-end Italian restaurant in Wildwood, and I worked every summer there for maybe 12 years or so. And I started off as dishwasher, then I started doing food prep, making salads, making desserts, and then worked my way onto the line cooking. And one of the things that I did for the restaurant was called Monzo's, is that I made the pasta fresh for the restaurant every morning. And again, I loved it. It was this insane routine where I would get up first thing in the morning, and at this point I had my driver's license. I would go drive to North Wildwood to A&LP, which was a pizza place that was owned by the same family, and I'd make the pasta there, drive it to the restaurant. I'd go ride my bike all the way from the end of the crest through the end of the boardwalk and then back. Then I'd go swim for like 2 hours, and then I'd go and work for about 13 hours and just repeat this every single day. And I knew something was wrong with me at that point in time, because I absolutely loved it, and I wanted to keep doing that forever. So I knew that at some point in time I would end up in a food business. It just happened a lot later than I thought it was going to. After high school, I wanted to go to culinary school, and my parents shot that down pretty quickly. They're like, no, my mom was born in Italy, came over as a teenager. I was, part of that end of that generation of, you're going to be the first to go to college and earn your 4-year respectable bachelor's degree. And my parents had decided that I was going to become a doctor, and I was just like, I'm not good at the skills required to be a doctor. And they made me enter college as a chem student, so it didn't last very long. So I kept getting sidetracked. First, couldn't go to culinary school, and then after I graduated college, I did a year of AmeriCorps, and I wasn't allowed to have any outside income. So that was the first year since I was like 11 that I didn't have a job in a restaurant. And somehow, so ended up in Colorado after that for a couple of years. All this time in the back of my mind, I'm like, I still want to end up working in a kitchen, whether it's my own place or somewhere else. And I ended up in Colorado. I was working in a newspaper out there, bartended out there for a little bit. Was never a good bartender. I never really drank. Right. So if the ingredients weren't in the name of the drink, I couldn't really make it, Like gin and tonic, got you covered. Tom Collins, don't know who he is,
Budweiser,
yeah,
I'm your man.
All right. Here. If it's on the label, sure. So I moved back from Colorado, got married, we had kids. We talked about, we had actually my wife and I put our house up for sale, and I had been accepted into the culinary arts program at Johnson & Wales, and her family lives in Rhode Island. We were going to move closer to them, and I was going to attend this program. And I had decided, I was like, by this point in time, we moved back to from Colorado right in the beginning of 2005 or so, and the food scene in Philadelphia had exploded. Mm-hmm. And all of the stuff that I grew up eating that other people kind of like thumb their noses at, like, what the hell is that? Was on that stuff was on people's menus now, and they were charging an arm and a leg for it. And like, okay, I can't open a restaurant. This is not in the cards. So I had decided I'm going to go through this program. In Providence, there's actually like a healthy Italian population and some really good Italian specialty stores. So my goal was I was going to go work there. I was going to learn the ins and outs of the trade, and then open up my own place. However, the housing market sucked. We couldn't sell our house. We stayed in town here in Haddonfield, and I couldn't be happier about that, because we love it here. We love our house, we love our neighbors, we love the neighborhood. Finally, at the end of 2016, I decided I couldn't let any external forces get in my way anymore. I couldn't make excuses for things that happened. Backtracking a little bit, part of the reason I moved back from Colorado was because to be with family. My mom had passed away. She had cancer. She passed away in 2004. So it was actually it was like we arrived back in Philadelphia Christmas Eve on 2004. So we moved back to be with family, and I knew that I always wanted to do something kind of to honor her memory. And then at the end of 2016, so after she passed away, my Nona, who lived with us from when I was born, moved back to Italy. And it was heartbreaking, because it was like we lost two mothers at once. And, it's not just emotionally, it's tough. in terms of like your daily routine, having those like Sunday meals together as a family. That was hard, losing that. And even just the food, losing all of that amazing food was very, very difficult. And at the end of 2016, my Nona passed away. She lived into her mid-90s, which was amazing. And honestly, moving back to Italy was the best possible thing for her. It revitalized her. She was around her family and around her friends, whereas I think she would have been a little more isolated had she stayed in the area. So I honestly believe it extended her life, and she led a fuller end of her life as a result. So when she passed, I took my family to Italy to, we spent maybe like a week and a half there or so, and when I came back, I'm just like, it's time to do this. It's time to do something to honor their memories. And Valente was my mom's maiden name. It was my Nona's last name, through marriage, of course. And that's what this is all about. This is my way of keeping their memories alive through making the food that I grew up eating. Some of it, of course, is stuff that I've picked up along the way, sure. But really, this is about them, and it's about my kids. So I have this weird intestinal syndrome. It's called Peutz-Jeghers. It's fairly uncommon, and my mom had it, and half the people who have it, 50% statistically die of cancer at the age of 57, which is what happened with my mom. She died at 57 of cancer. So when I learned that fact, that the mortality rate of that was 57, it's 50%. Like, oh my God, my own mortality became very, very present and kind of hung over me like a cloud. So I wanted to build something for my kids that I knew that someday they could have when I was no longer here.
Finding that fact out, about passing away at 57 is 50%. Did that give you a sense of urgency?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what's the timing of that? Did grandmom pass and you found out those facts, were they close together? Was it a couple things bang bang in a row that brought you to a spot that says, I'm going to take this leap?
Sure. So part of me wishes it had gone in that order. It was a lot more drawn out and mentally anguishing than that. I found out that fact shortly after my mom died. And I have to have routine procedures every 6 months to a year or so, and just some of it's checkup, some of it is relatively invasive, and I was very depressed by it. There were days where I just didn't want to get out of bed, and so on and so forth. But when my kids were born, it certainly helped change my perspective on things, and it always made me feel guilty, from when they were younger, when they were first born. That it's my mom never got to really spend any time with Carrie. My wife, she never got to know her very well. She wasn't there at our wedding. She didn't know we had gotten engaged. I had told her that I, was buying a ring and that we were going to, but she wasn't around when that happened. Sure. And I've felt guilty about the possibility in the future
doing the same thing, right?
Yeah,
that's what the trap was. Yep.
So I don't care about my memory. I don't care if I fade away. That doesn't matter to me. The business isn't even named after me.
Right.
Even if someone says chef, like I feel very awkward about that title. I'm like, I feel like I haven't earned that. Like I want to get to a point where I feel comfortable having like really put in the time doing that. Like people say chef, I'm like, yeah, I own this place. Yeah. But sorry. Anyway. So yeah, I don't care about. There's no sense of me accomplishing something for myself. It's really. I hope that I can leave something behind for them if I'm not here.
Do you think going into a venture like this, where it is so much tied to family history and to honor those before you, making it not about Marcello DeFeo, how has that taken kind of like pressure off of you?
Yeah, it's
like how has that really affected you? Because that's way different than you making a name for yourself in a market like this. Like you mentioned earlier, and just kind of joking around in a saturated market, but making it about family and things bigger than yourself.
Sure, it's a very good question. It probably has taken a lot of pressure off of me, because I don't like being in the spotlight. I'm not a type A personality at all. I've always liked being in the background, organizing things and helping plan things. And when I was in college, I used to host dinner parties, like fancy dinner parties. It was like invitation only. People would pay $20 and you would get, you'd come and it would be like a 3-course meal. You get like filet mignon and a nice wine, and like it was nuts. Like who does that in college? Me. I'm the nut job that did that, and it wasn't about look at all this awesome stuff I could do. It was like this is like I want to give this to you. Like I like making people happy, and being Italian, I have that sense of I want to make you well fed. So I want you to be stuffed when you leave here.
Do you think in your place, like the Italian specialties, in that type of market, in that setting dynamic, do you think you could really communicate hospitality, even if it's people popping in? Like in that food service type of industry, is that kind of like the $1 million question? Is like, can you facilitate hospitality, even if I'm going to see Marcello just for 2 minutes?
Sure. Yeah. So we don't want to churn and burn through customers. We want to have personal relationships with them. And, from very early on in planning this business and how it was going to unfold, I kind of use this term of like the De Bruno brothers experience. When you go in there and you're throwing a dinner party and you're looking to buy some good cheeses and, these different whatever that you want to have there, that they kind of welcome you in with open arms, and you get to taste all of this stuff, and they tell you what will go well with these wines and this meal and so on and so forth. So that's what I wanted, and to kind of help with that, we actually hired this girl Jamie Ping. She's our cheese director. She actually was a professional cheesemaker for years, and now she works as a cheese educator at De Bruno Brothers. And she curates a monthly selection of cheeses for us, and September will be the first month that we have it. And she, as part of it, she curates the cheeses. She writes up a little blurb on each one of them. We'll send it out as like a blog post or email blast or whatever. And then she comes in and will train the entire team on the cheeses, so that when other people come in, we could, kind of pass that along to them.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to as far as Valente's being family oriented. As a dad, right? And you have 2 wonderful children.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
That's all Carrie.
Yeah. How much can you really include your kids? How much is intentional? Do you think there's kind of a balance and like a boundary you're aware of? Because again, hearing you talk about you're running a place at 11.
Yeah, yeah.
And to have a daughter about that age, what's going on through that thought process at this stage of it?
Sure. So So our business started it was formed in the beginning of 2017, and we operated primarily as a mobile vendor and caterer. We were using a church kitchen to cook out of, and for a little while we used like a caterer's kitchen to cook out of. And we were doing up to 8 farmers markets per week. And because of our schedules, Carrie's a nurse, she works overnights, so we had a lot of conflicting work schedules. As a result, the kids often came with me to these farmers markets, and their personalities and their interests really got to shine a bit there. And Lil is very people oriented, and my daughter Liliana, she's my oldest. She will have a great conversation with you, and really kind of sell these products, and like you forget that she's 10, that she's almost 11 now. Sometimes you think you talk to her so like she's your age.
Yep.
Like she's and Nino he's much more business savvy. He's financially oriented. It's very different than me, that's for sure, but he's very creative. He's like a mad genius. So he would always be kind of the money guy at the markets, and he made sure that everything is paid for, and that people got their correct change. And now that we've opened, it's it's actually really funny. Right before we opened, one of the first conversations I had about being close to opening was with Julie, who owns Inkwood Books here in Haddonfield. And she said, just so you know, child labor laws don't apply to your own children. She said, you don't have to pay the minimum wage, and you don't have to restrict the amount of hours that they work. So I like telling Liliana and that. But obviously we don't take that advantage of that. Nino, he's a good cleaner. Like, he'll come in on a Sunday and just randomly start sweeping or mopping or something like that. And Lil wants to be on the schedule, and she wants to be working, and I say, okay, well, we'll have you come in like on Saturdays or something and work for a couple hours. And like, she came last week, she came in and worked with my stepmom was there too, helping out. And it was the end of my stepmom's shift, and she was leaving, and she was going to take Liliana home, and Liliana refused to leave. She's like, no, you need help, I'm going to stay here. And that's just who she is, and that just amazes me. The two of them, they amaze me every single day. It's a bit of a juggling act between how many hours you spend there and how many hours you don't want to. You want to build something for them, but you don't want to take away the time that you have with them either. So that is still something that I'm fine tuning. Like, it was just Nino's birthday. He just turned 9 the other day, and we had just opened, so it was like, you can't really take off on Saturday or whatever it was, and but having an employee close up for me at night so I could go out to dinner with them, and then making sure I was there in the morning of his birthday and whatnot. So there's some fine-tuning that needs to be done there, and of course, as the business grows over time, it'll be much easier to sneak out for these things, because I don't want to lose sight of that. And the way I look at it with the business is, I want to leave something for them, and whatever that means for them is fine by me. If that means that it's something that they are very hands-on with and they run, great. If they have it where they just hire people who run it and they do their own thing, fine by me. If they sell it and take whatever revenue they can out of it, great. I just want to help them. So,
question: do you communicate that to them even early on?
Yeah.
How do you do that? That seems to be something I've seen generational wise with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always on the table. It's like some unsaid pressure. It's like, oh, you might take it over just because you're the son of an owner. But how have you done that as far as including them in the process early?
Sure. So I catch myself sometimes where they may hear in conversation when they're around with someone else that, building this for them sort of thing. So I make sure to point out to them, like, hey, guys, if you take this over, awesome. If you don't, I get it. I just want to have an option available for you. And, I don't want to pressure them into anything. And of course, it's very easy to say that when the business is like a week old, the brick and mortar is a week old, because you haven't put all of your blood, sweat, and tears into it. But 20 years down the road or so, whatever, it might be like, oh man, really? But
Yep. That's awesome. You kind of led off. We were talking about inspiration-wise, starting early.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as that entrepreneurial spirit, clearly in you from before you were even a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And because we already kind of talked about that subject, if I go one step farther,
Mm-hmm.
would you say it was a calling?
So I talked to. That's the best way to answer this. I don't know what the right word is to define it. I think that's probably pretty accurate to call it that. It feels like this is where I was meant to be. I still work a full-time job, and I do it remotely, and they know that I own this food business, and they're okay with it, just as long as it doesn't interfere with the work that I need to get done, which is part of the reason that I have a handful of employees, because if I need to disappear for like an hour to be on a conference call or, make a change to something, then I'm still able to do that. It's definitely not revenue driven, I could tell you that much, because I'm not business savvy at all. Actually, it's funny that we're doing this right now, because just yesterday I saw someone had put us on. They reviewed us on one of their podcasts. It was called John Appetit, and they were awesome. They had amazing things to say, and it was really kind of humbling to hear what they had to say. So being, my God, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I like blanking here? Sorry.
I know. I think because of calling, it's a heavy yes. If you were to say yes, like that's a heavy yes.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but that's why I pose it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like hearing you starting at 11, and it was always tied to family.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a passion I had for a season.
Mm-hmm.
It was always in the back of your head, even doing through college, and even a year off from not working and doing AmeriCorps, and that's something I constantly ask myself. And so to be able to ask someone like you is like, is it a calling? What you find yourself stepping into.
Yeah. So even when I did something like AmeriCorps, or when I was in college, I was, I'd mentioned like the dinner parties we used to do. I used to be involved in like these service trips where we would go to, it was like Project Appalachia it was called. So we'd go, to like the small, really rural town in Kentucky and help, like a Habitat for Humanity kind of thing, doing electrical wiring and hoping that you don't kill somebody as a result of it. But we would go down there, and I would end up like cooking for these groups of like 100 people or whatever it was, and I loved it. We would make it this communal experience where, everyone would come in the kitchen and we'd all make gnocchi together for everybody, and it was a lot of fun, and that was my way of connecting with people and seeing them sated and happy, and so there's that kind of like emotional tie to it where you see that end result of people just kind of like unbuckling their belt a little bit where you're like, yeah, that's awesome. But there's also this other side of it. I had tried for a long time to find a place for Valentes, and I ended up, I think, where I was meant to be. And before that, there was a pre-existing business I was actually looking at purchasing, and one of the reasons for that was because it would have been a stable transition. They were, kind of like revenue positive, and it's the kind of business you go in and you don't really touch anything. You just keep everything running, keep the same people there. And I felt like it would have given me a kitchen to, really hone in on my products and, start slowly adding some of that stuff to the menu. Or, if they have a pasta salad, then I'm making the pasta that goes into that, whatever. So I was talking to the person who was selling the business, and the conversation we had was basically this: you have to be crazy to be in this line of work. There has to be something wrong with you, because if you can get up at 6 a.m, not hesitate to get out the door as quickly as possible, work until 11, 12, whatever, and repeat the next day over and over and over again without being like frustrated or angry or just wishing that you could make it all go away, then you're nuts. You're really nuts, especially when you look at what the average income is for someone who's doing this thing. You're just crazy. It's like, I could work in a job in IT where I'm comfortable and secure, and I'm sitting on my couch and I get to watch reruns of Night Court on this channel I just found every day. Or I could be churning out pasta for people and, not paying myself for it. And the latter sounds more appealing. If I could work Night Court into it, I probably would. I just love that show.
One day, but I'm sure you'll be able to. Yeah. One of the last question I want to end with, and mind you, this answer, I'm sure stage to stage will be different. Mm-hmm. But the season that you're in right now, what is success to you?
Success to me is certainly not related to finances. It's not how did we do, well, what is our bottom line? How were we able to cut costs? Our business cards are these like high-end luxe cards from moo.com, where it's like it's like 2 pieces of paper and has like a little like inserted black piece around it, and people always try to pull it apart, and it makes me laugh. But it's my very, very subtle way of saying we don't cut corners, anywhere. I'm not giving you cheap products. If you're buying meatballs from us, they're made with their pork belly and brisket and really high-end cuts of meat. We're not just getting like some pre-ground stuff you would buy at the supermarket for next to nothing. We grind it ourselves. We use we have like a stone mill, and we get locally sourced berries for wheat, and we will grind the wheat to make the pasta ourselves. And success is knowing that we've done everything we can to put out that quality product, and that we gave it our all, and that we were able to kind of push forward and better ourselves, and hopefully as a result encourage more people to kind of do the same and follow their passions too, I guess.
Well, Marcello, I wanted to say thank you, for this time. I know in between a camp, and going back to work, and then the other work that you have. But as listening to you share, to hear someone go into business for the sake of legacy is unique, and that absolutely comes through in anybody that has a conversation with you. And the whole cooking is connecting. One of the things I think takeaway is you didn't talk about you have to be an exceptional cook, like to connect. And as someone who's a terrible cook, that resonates with me, because it is about hospitality and those are the things that kind of come through even you out of a kitchen, right? You're not in your element right now, just like a conversation. And so I just want to say thanks for sharing your story. And I know it resonates with me, but I know it'll resonate with any listener too.